Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Raka Widi Pratama. I'm from Class B English Education. I'm going to explain my presentations on the Profundis novel Analyst, written by Oscar Wilde. Personal life of Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde. Oscar Final of Faherty was Wilde, born 60 October 1854, 30 November 1900, at the age of 46 years, is an Irish novelist, playwright, food and short story writer. Known for his witty sense of humor, he was one of the most successful playwrights of the late Victorian era in London. His mother was an Irish nationalist. His father was a surgeon. As a brilliant student, Wilde was awarded a scholarship to Trinity College in Dublin and then continued to Oxford University in 1884. He married Constance Lyot and had two sons. The author's notable works include the collections of tales The Heavy Friends 1888 and A House of Pomegranates 1890. Novel The Picture of Dorian Gray, the 1891. The Plays Lady Windermere's, 1892. An Ideal Husband, The Importance of Being Earnest, 1898. The Profundis, 1897. Essays. The Profundis background. And iconoless in this time and one of the most brilliant writers of the Victorian era, Oscar Wilde had a plethora of these works published and well received. Unfortunately, he was incarcerated for gross indecency and had to spend a portion of his life in prison. Nonetheless, this period saw the creation of some of his important works. One of these works was The Profundis, a letter by Oscar Wilde to Bussy, Lord Alfred Douglas. In this letter, Oscar Wilde essentially talks about the kinds of life they led, which eventually come back to haunt him, and talks about the fact that he had a revelation while in prison and found Jesus Christ. Wilde had given this letter to Robert Ross with faith that he would publish this letter eventually. Ross did so and gave the letter, The Profundis, a biblical allusion to Psalm 130. The Profundis themes will make reference to the suffering by several times throughout the length and breadth of the Profundis. Oscar Wilde was accused of having a shallow career in which he placed too much attention on appearances in both his manner and his fictions. Of course, the object of Wilde's ire regarding the vice of being too shallow in the Profundis is his former lover, Alfred Douglas, referred to with great affection here, and elsewhere as music. The Profundis analysis Wilde here is talking about his despair of being impressioned and thinking about Chris. In his letter addressed to his friend or his audience in general, Wales confesses his inner struggle of accepting the horrible fate he had to face of going to prison. In the first part, he addresses his way of life that led him there. He accepts with a sense of half-reflecting that he is the only one to blame for what happened. It was difficult for him at first, but as an artist whose purpose is influencing people and touching and healing their hearts, he has to that for himself now. He analyzes himself, his heart, and his mind, and discusses the source of his anger, the source of this loss of individualism, the loss of his own soul at loss. He discovers the beauty and a source of healing in Christ and the life of Christ. The while concludes the letter by looking forward to new beginnings and accepting that he has no place in society, only in nature. In his final phase of the letter, while accepts his fate not as his ending but a wonderful new beginning. In his sorrow he has found himself and retrieved his soul. He is himself now and ready to face whatever awaits him. He realizes that someone like him will always be an outcast to society, but nature, as a nurturing source of healing, will heal his wounds and purify his mind and soul. The Profundis character list. 1. Oscar Wilde. The main character of this letter is the writer himself. Oscar Wilde, he tells about his inner troubles that came with being put into prison and his spiritual awakening while being there. At first, he was filled with anger and rage, but as the time progressed, he became calmer and interested of looking at events that happened to him as something horrible and unjust. He started to see them as a path to his self-discovery and individualist perfection. He mentioned some of his celebrated works and themes that were engraved into them. He also tells about Chris as a perfect individualist and the magnitude of how the story of Chris influenced art. 2. Chris. Wilde tells about thinking about Chris and the life of Chris while in prison. He tells about Chris in connection to art and Chris leading a true life of an artist. He tells that those who live a life that shares similarities to that of Chris, that they are fully and absolutely themselves. He sees Chris as a complete individualist that has a place among foods and that his interest lies in the soul of man. 3. Wilde's audience. This letter could be seen as Wilde's confession to his audience. Oftentimes, in his letter, he self-consciously reveals that he only lived for comfort and pleasures of life and gives some insights into the main motives and themes of some of his foremost works. He confesses himself to an unknown prisoner, contemplating that the unknown man will be able to escape from the memory of prison, but he won't because of his fame and audience. Nevertheless, he has faith in himself and in his art, and that through his art he will be able to reach his audience again. The Profundis literary elements. Genre. Oscar Wilde's letter addressed to one of his close friends. Settings and context. Oscar Wilde was sent to prison for indecency in 1895, an experience which made him write the letter. Narrator and point of view. Narrator. Oscar Wilde's point of view. First person. Tone and mood. Tone. Despairing, hopeful towards the end. Mood. Somewhere lonely. Foreshadowing. N.A. Protagonist and antagonist. Protagonist. Oscar Wilde. Antagonist. Society that made him an outcast. Major conflict while in prison. Wilde is confronted with himself, which makes him think about the true meaning of life and art. Climax. Wilde decides to not despair and to see the events that happened to him as a path towards a new beginning. Understatement. Wilde understated the effects that every little action of life has on the development of one's character. Allusions. Allusion to Shakespeare's The Tempest and its characters, Ariel and Caliban. Parallelism. Morality does not help me. Religion does not help me. Reason does not help me. Personification. If I can produce only one beautiful work of art, I shall be able to rob malice of its venom and cowardice of its snare, and to pluck out the tongue of scorn by the roots. Morality, religion, and reason. Whilst in his letter describes that neither morality nor religions nor reason can help him, morality does not help him because he is one of those who are born in exceptions to it. Religion does not help him because he does not believe in the unseen, only what he can feel. Reason does not help him because it makes him think that what happened to him is unjust. It could be said that their factors hold the most importance in society, and in the fact that these factors can't help Wilde, they symbolize his role as a society outcast. Reference. Okay, maybe that's all my presentation. If you found mistakes in my presentation, please forgive me. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.